Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go.
As you guys know from my previous videos, I have been doing the paranormal. I've been into it since I was a little girl, and I've been investigating for about 5 years now, and I just started a YouTube channel. It's linked in my bio. But I want to take you guys back to 2016. I had just moved into a new house the year prior, and this house was in the town's museum because it was a part of the Underground Railroad. When we first moved into the house, we were told we should not go in the basement because there's asbestos in there. That's why the house was so cheap. And we never really got it taken care of, but we had the basement blocked off, so we had never gone down there. The floor in the kitchen had a spot where it was raised up under the linoleum, and it was a big square space. And we put our kitchen table over it, but it was just super weird that it was just this random big square in the middle of the kitchen under the linoleum. Didn't think much of it, and we never really went into the basement to see if we could see above, to see like where it would be and what it was. But that's just preface for how this story is gonna go. So the door to the basement was in a hallway right next to where our bathroom was, and we were kind of a close-knit family, so like we left the bathroom door open. It was just me and my mom and my sister. So we always left the bathroom door open when we'd be getting ready in the morning, just in case the other one had to run in, take a shower. I don't know if you guys had super close-knit families like that, but mine was. It wasn't weird. Don't make it weird. So I believe I was in my 3rd year of high school, so my junior year. And I was straightening my hair, getting ready for school, and I thought I saw my mom in the hallway, just kind of out of the corner of my eye while I'm straightening my hair. I like look over and I, kind of seen like a shadow in the hallway because it was dark. Didn't think anything of it. I said something to her. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I could see her in the hallway. So she didn't answer, so I looked over. Nobody's there. Automatically, I yelled for her. I was like, Mom, 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 come here right now. She was asleep when I was yelling for her, and she came in. She's like, what? Like, what do you want? I'm trying to sleep. Like, I gotta go to work soon. And I was like, were you just in the hallway? And she was like, no, girl, I was in bed. So I stopped straightening my hair, and I go to try and find my sister, and I was like, hey, bitch, were you in the hallway just now trying to get in the bathroom? She's also in bed, and she throws her pillow at me, and she's like, get the fuck out of my room. So I was very scared. I was gross. So I had not straightened the other side of my hair, so I went back into the bathroom to continue to straighten my hair, and again, corner of my eye. And at that point, I said, fuck this. I threw my hair up into a bun. I did not finish straightening it, and I left for school. So we didn't really talk about it because my mom was kind of distant, I guess. She worked a lot, so a lot of the times when I would get home from school, it'd just be me and my sister chilling there, and my mom would be at work until 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock sometimes. And so that same night, me and my sister were sitting in the living room, and we were watching TV, and we heard someone walking in the kitchen, and we thought Mom was home, but we didn't hear the front door open. So my sister gets up to go see if Mom's in the kitchen, see what we're gonna do for dinner, and apparently nobody was in the kitchen. And so she came back and she sat down. We continued on watching TV. I think we were watching Family Guy or something, and then we hear something in the kitchen, glass breaking. At this point, our thought was, oh my gosh, someone's breaking into the house right now, and we need to call Mom. So we called Mom, and she said, go look again, make sure nobody's here. Maybe something just fell over when you guys were walking past. It's an old house. Maybe something, the floor was settling, something fell off. And then we ended up locking all of the doors until Mom got home. And that night we went to bed after Mom had gotten home, and my mom, I hear her screaming in her bedroom. So me and my sister we both like got up at the same time and we ran downstairs to where my mom's room was, and she was like fully asleep, like 110% asleep. So we woke her up and we were like, Mom, like, are you okay? You were just screaming. And she was like kind of sleepy. She's like, whatever, just go back to bed, like everything's fine, whatever. And little things like that would happen. So that's just an example of one day where it was super active. And then one day we had a really bad storm and all the power went out, so we had to go into the basement to check the breakers. And then when we went into the basement, like me, my sister, and my mom, we all went down there together with our flashlights in hand, ready to fix some shit, you know. We don't need no man, 3 women, we gonna do this shit, you know what I mean? So we all go down to the basement to check the breakers, and we hear constant walking above us. All 3 of us are in the basement, and we just hear like someone walking across the floor. And then I like kind of look up and I'm like, what the hell? And right where we heard the walking was where the kitchen was, and we looked on the ceiling, pointed our flashlights up, and there was a fucking trap door. That's what the raised linoleum was. It was a big square trap door, probably 4 feet by 4 feet. So we got the power back on, we went back upstairs, and we didn't hear anything for the rest of that night. After a few months of just like little shit happening, it started to get like worse and worse, to where it was becoming like every day we were constantly hearing things in the house. And my mom thought it would be a good idea to burn some sage in the house and see if that helps. So we did that, and activity stopped for a little bit, but once it came back, it was like 10 times worse. Me and my sister were waking up out of our sleep, like seeing people in the corner of our rooms, feeling like we were being choked. It was fucking terrifying. So we went to the museum because when we first bought the house, we had known that it was part of the Underground Railroad and it was like in the museum and stuff. And we went to the museum to see if we can get some more like, you know, research on the house that we could just know a little bit more about it. There was 5 documented people that had passed away in the house. One of whom was a woman who looked eerily similar to my mother. Eerily similar. The long, dark hair and like the round face, the longer nose, looked exactly like my mom. The woman who was in the pictures was the lady of the house who was helping hide people who were escaping from slavery under the trap door. The basement door used to not be a thing. It used to only be the trap door. I guess they didn't build the basement door until way later after. And there was some allegations of her abusing some of the children of the families who had escaped. And she was not a very kind spirit, and apparently she had a really bad temperament problem, and she had some mental health issues as well, recorded by her husband, who would write in his diary about his wife's madness. So we learned a little bit more about it, and we kind of learned to live with it and all of the happenings, and it became super normalized in the household, and we just stopped paying attention to it. And once you stop paying attention to something like that, normally it'll settle down. So that's what we did, and that's what happened. But it was just a really odd way that we found out, really odd story, and I just thought I would share it with you guys. And yeah, if you haven't already, please follow me and subscribe to the YouTube channel that is in the bio. I do paranormal investigations. My last video was on Marilyn and Dennis Depew, and I went to the crime scene location of where some of the things happened between them, and I would really, really love it if you guys went and checked that out.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely...
My turn. So anybody that knows me personally knows that I actually grew up in a house that had a lot of paranormal activity. I have a ton of scary stories I can tell that have happened to me throughout my life, but to start off, I'm actually going to be telling y'all a story that happened to my mom. So this story is actually going to take place back in 2003. I had just freshly turned 4 years old, and I had just been transferred over to my own big girl room. I was young still and scared, so it was very common for me to enter my mom's room in the middle of the night and try to get back in bed with her. So one night, probably around 1 or 2 a.m., my mom gets abruptly woken up from her sleep. The room is pitch black, so she can't really see anything yet, but as her eyes are adjusting, she could see a tiny little figure standing next to the bed that's shaped exactly like me, so she's assuming that I had a bad dream and I'm trying to get into bed with her. So of course she's gonna try to comfort me. She says my name twice and asks me what's wrong, and no response. I don't say a word. I'm just standing there looking at her in the pitch black. So she starts to reach out for me, of course, to pick me up to put her in the bed, and I start reaching back out for her. So we are like right here, about to touch hands, and as she's about to make contact with me, the door flies open to her bedroom and the real me comes running in. So of course she's freaked out. She jumps up out of bed to run and go grab me because she doesn't know what was standing there. She hears whatever it was run into the closet that was open at the time. She grabs me, wakes up her husband at the time, my dad, and tells him that there is somebody in the closet. So of course he jumps up to go investigate. He rips the closet door open and there is nothing there. Nothing there. A lot of paranormal things have happened to my mom, and not once has anything ever tried to reach out and touch her like that. And she believes that God sent the real me into the room at the right time to save her, because who knows what would have happened if she would have made contact with whatever that was. And that is only one of countless scary stories that I have. I also have a lot of my own paranormal experiences that I can share too. So if you guys want to hear more or you want to see proof, let me know.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. Part 2.
So the scariest thing that ever happened to me was when I was a teenager. I lived in a house that was haunted. I don't think it was haunted by any one particular thing. I think it had a lot of stuff that moved through it. I think the whole neighborhood that I lived in was haunted. And that's a story for another day. But when I was maybe 16 or 17, I received a batik tapestry from a friend in the mail. And it was beautiful. It was a lovely gift. And I hung it on my wall. And that night, as the night I hung it, the whole mood in my bedroom changed. Everything got real weird. Everything got real tense. And I already had insomnia, but I really, really struggled to go to sleep that night. So I was tossing and turning, and it just felt like something was in the room with me. I don't really know how else to describe it. I had things that happened in the house, but it rarely happened to me at night. But that night, it sounded like I kept hearing little sounds. I kept hearing, it sounded like something moving, and it just felt like something was watching me. And finally, I started to fall asleep. And as soon as I fell asleep, I felt the bed beside me shift, like something was in it and it moved. And then I heard right in my ear this really deep, horrible growl, and it just scared the absolute fuck out of me. I jumped up out of bed, and I don't know why, but I was absolutely sure it had to do with this tapestry. I don't think the tapestry itself had the bad energy. I think that whatever was in my house did not like it. So I took it down and cleared it up, but I'm pretty sure I did not sleep the rest of that night. I did not ever have that happen again, though.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Okay, so I rarely ever make TikToks, but I saw this video and I was so excited to hop on and tell my own paranormal story because, every once in a while my mom will go back and, talk about it, and it's just, so crazy that we're this could probably be its own horror movie. I want to preface this by saying a few things. There is so much to this story that I might have to make another part. I usually hate when people have to do, multiple parts for their stories on here, but there is so much I don't think I can fit in one video. I'm gonna try my best, but I feel like even just, the explanation to, how we got to the main, story is... Another thing is, this took place in, 2007, 2008, so I was about, 7 years old at the time. A lot of this will be coming from my mom's perspective, a lot of this, like, I did experience myself, but some of it will also just be coming from things that my mom have told. And lastly, there was an entire book that my mom kept while everything was happening, where she, like, basically did, like, journal entries anytime there was, like, crazy stuff happening. We had all of our, like, photo evidence in there and all of the drawings that I did. And basically at that time, like, I think it might have been after it all happened, she lended the book to one of her friends and just never got it back. So I unfortunately do not have any of the evidence that we had at the time, but I still have the story. So okay, so to start, I'm not going to disclose the location of, like, where this all took place, because I don't want people, like, being weird, but like, I will say that when we moved into this place, there was nothing creepy about it, like, no inkling whatsoever that it was haunted. There was, like, no bad energy or anything, never experienced anything, but, like, even though there was nothing originally there, we ended up bringing something into our home. I don't remember if this happened before or after. I think it happened before they went, because I think she said that it was the reason that they ended up going. But my mom had this dream where we were, like, in a crowd of people, and there were, like, explosions going off, and she kept hearing, like, this repeated, like, music in her dream. Like, she could make it out very clearly, but it was, like, really distorted, and she said almost, like, apocalyptic sounding in her dream. And her and her partner at the time, we'll call him Dylan, because that's, like, so far from his actual name, I think it's good. So again, the place we were living was not initially haunted, and then they went to this place. Again, I'm not gonna, like, disclose the actual location, but it was a battlefield, and I believe they went on July 3rd. I don't know if that's, like, the exact time, but I know it was before the 4th of July. They ended up going. I believe my mom, like, mentioned to him something about her being, like, kind of, like, psychic or clairvoyant. Like, we've kind of had that with the women in our family, just, like, weird predictions and, like, a lot of weird shit happening. I don't know. And he kept taking her, like, places around this battlefield and just being like, okay, tell me what you see. And I believe there was, like, a creek type area. I don't know if other people have heard that term a lot, because I don't know, it's basically just, like, you know, a little area of running water. And she was like, I, like, see blood. And he was like, yeah, they call this, like, I don't remember the exact, like, term for it, but it was, like, the Bloody River or something, because so many soldiers had died there that their blood ran into the water and turned it red. Next, he took her over to this, like, tree, and again was like, what do you see? And she was like, I see, like, 3 guys talking or whatever, 2 are just sitting there, and 1 is, like, hanging upside down from the tree. And I forget if she mentioned that, like, an explosion went off after that or, like, something, but I remember her saying that she saw, like, those 3 guys at the tree. So, like, maybe you're thinking, you know, sensing that sort of, like, energy or presence at a battlefield where a lot of people died, like, maybe isn't that, like, hard to believe or whatever. I also forgot to mention that I myself am, like, a bit of a skeptic when it comes to ghosts. Like, I'm not really sure what I believe. I kind of stand in the middle. I just know of, like, the experiences I have, and, like, I, for the most part, will believe someone else's experience, because for the most part, people don't have any reason to lie about that, if they're not, like, profiting off of it or, like, whatever. I just try to think, like, logically before I automatically go to it being a ghost. But anyway, so there were also these, like, old houses or buildings on, like, the premises or whatever, and also, just like in the horror movies, there was a crow perched on top of one of the buildings, the one that they were, like, about to go in or whatever, and it was just, like, calling nonstop, and they're kind of like, oh, I don't know if that's a good sign. But I think they, like, went in the building anyways, and were kind of, like, stirring up shit. Like, I don't know if they really thought that, like, there wasn't anything there, but they were just kind of, like, egging on whatever could possibly be there. Again, just kind of stirring stuff. They took a lot of photos while they were there. I think a couple of them were like normal for the most part, but in all of the ones with the buildings, you can see like humanoid figures in the windows in almost all the pictures. I wish that I still had them to show. Okay, I'm sorry, it cut off and I don't know where it got cut off, but anyways, what I was talking about is my mom had to like go to the bathroom. There wasn't a bathroom in the area, so there's like not necessarily like a forest around it, but it's like very naturey surrounding the area. So I was like, I'll just, you know, go in the naturey area, but it also happens to be like next to one of these old buildings, and while she's going, she hears the voices of like 2 or 3 guys coming from the building, and they're like, shh, they're gonna hear us, or like something along those lines. And my mom is braver than me, because if I heard something like that, I would fucking bolt immediately. But she was like, guys, I'm trying to pee here, like, can you like leave or whatever. But anyways, after she was done, like, they kind of thought like, well, maybe it could just be like homeless people, or, you know, they do tours of this place, like maybe there's just people like hiding out in the building or whatever. They went in afterwards, and there was no one there. There was no one in the building. There was no one around the building. Nothing. Okay, I'm hoping I can finish this last bit of like kind of the introduction before the video gets cut off. But so yeah, then it's the 4th of July, and I come along this time, and the reason that we're going there for the 4th of July is because like every year they did like a big thing of like fireworks here, and a lot of people came with like their families or whatever. So one thing, I had a swaggy pair of Jonas Brothers flip-flops or like sandals or whatever, and they always hurt my feet so bad, so my mom told me not to wear them, and I was like, I'm gonna wear them anyways, because like, even though they gave me blisters, you know, Jonas Brothers flip-flop. So it's me and my mom, and I think Dylan is also there, and the fireworks end up getting cut off, like the show ends up getting cut off early because it starts storming really bad, and it's raining, and so we're all leaving, and my mom is like carrying me because my feet hurt, and my mom like realizes this is just like the dream that she had, like we're in the crowd of people. The explosions that she was hearing in her dream were the fireworks and the lightning going off, and then an ice cream truck goes by, and it's the same music that she heard in her dream, and the reason that it sounded so distorted was because it was raining on the speakers on the Okay, finishing up this last bit as quick as I can. There was an area kind of far away from people where my mom asked if I wanted to like go sit down. I was freaked out by this place. I was like, there's no way. And then my mom had just gotten a brand new car, like this brand new car. Okay, we were trying to leave, and the car had to be jump started, I think, 3 times before we could actually leave. Okay, this is the setup for what is going to be the entire story. Hopefully I won't have to make more than 2 parts, but again, there is a lot. So, yeah, I'm gonna make another part and get into the actual crazy shit that starts happening.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Y'all keep asking for these, so part 5 of stories about my grandpa's haunted house, and this one is my favorite. So my grandpa was married for a long time to his second wife, and she was like a second grandma to me. I called her Nana. I loved her and have very fond memories of staying at their house. Unfortunately, I can't remember what year, but she passed away. So for the first time, my grandpa was about to be living on his own in that house. And my grandma, Nana, woke him up every morning, banging pots of pans around, making breakfast. So the first night after she had passed away, he stayed in that house by himself, and the next morning he woke up to pots and pans banging around in the kitchen. And so he walked out, and they were still moving on the hooks a little bit. and there was a chair pulled out at the table. It was a chair that she always sat in, and he had distinctly remembered pushing that chair up against the table the night before. And from what he says, he just sat across from that chair and just cried. And it's my favorite because it's a sweet story about maybe if there is an afterlife, there's ghosts, sending a sign back to your loved ones to let them know that you're thinking of them. That's just a really, really amazing thing for me to believe. And I love that story.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
So I finally have a story to contribute. So I'm around 11 or 12 at the time, and I'm living with my great aunt and my great grandma. I'm like, living my life. That night I'm like watching a decom or something in our living room. And just for like visualization, like this is like a layout of our living room. So we have like our 2 couches adjacent to the TV. And I read that was me because I was like the best seat. And right across, this blue square is like the archway to our hallway, with a bedroom on either side and like a bathroom in the middle. So I'm out here, vibing, and all of a sudden I get the urge and look in the hallway. And I kid you not, there was a silhouette, like that walked from one side of the hallway to the other. And I'm right here panicking, and I'm just like, what was that? I don't know. Like, I was right here freaking out. But then I'm just trying to rationalize it. It's like, I didn't see anything. Nothing happened. So, like, I kind of just try to forget about it. However, like, a few weeks later, 2 of my cousins come to spend the night. And we're all chilling in the living room, I don't know what we were watching. Maybe, like, that, like, Discovery Channel Mermaid special they had made. Just, like, that, like, living our lives. But then we all turn our heads to the hallway. And that silhouette was back. That shadow walks, again, same direction, from one side of the hallway to the other. And my cousins are freaking out, I'm freaking out, but in my head, I'm just like, validation. I knew I wasn't crazy. But then we all run to my tia's room. And we tell her, there's this thing in the hallway, like, the shadow. But she doesn't believe us. She was like, you guys are making it up. You guys are playing a prank. And she doesn't believe us. But in my head, I'm just like, at least I was validated that day. A few years later, my little cousin was living with us. He's 10 years younger than I am, and at the time, he was about, like, 6 or 7. He was pretty young. I'm in, like, the bedroom talking to my grandma, and my little cousin's in the living room watching TV. But he comes running into the bedroom, crying, saying he's seen an old bald man in the living room with him. So my family goes to check. There's nothing there, but he's still freaking out. And this happens, like, a couple more times. And after one of these times, like, I remember my tia nonchalantly mentioning, oh yeah, your older cousin used to see an old bald man too. Huh, that's funny. I'm just like, what? I'm just like, like 3 generations of, like, people seeing things in this house. My tia still doesn't believe it. And I'm just like, what is happening? She doesn't believe it up until she goes to a friend's party. And a friend of the friend is a medium. My tia tells us this lady walked up to her and said, there's a man in your house. He's not malevolent. He's just a little ticked off with the construction you made. And my tia comes home and she's all like, oh my god, I knew something with this house. I had a feeling. And I'm just like, no you did not. Because we kept telling you all throughout these years and you didn't believe us. So I'm just like, oh my god. And like, nothing really else happened. I would always get feelings after that. There was this one time, though. We got, like, a new dog, and it was a puppy at the time. And it was, like, barking in our, like, at this empty space in our dining room, which is adjacent to our living room. And I was home alone, but it was just barking at the space. So, like, I lift up the dog. I kind of, like, hover it over the space it's barking at, and it just starts crying. And I just, like, I put the dog back down, and I'm just like, goodbye. But, like, I didn't see anything else after that. I would always get feelings, and just out of respect, whenever I would walk into a room or, like, anywhere, and I had a feeling something was there, I'd just be like, hi, hello, how are you? I'm just here. Goodbye. Yeah, so it was crazy. And I was like, the house, no, it was crazy. And then, like, I do have another story about, like, seeing a demon with my mom one time, but that was a different house. And I was, like, younger. But yeah, so this is my story. Yes, let me tell you the second story, like before I forget to do it again. So this one's like much shorter than the first one. It's for the most part like a one-off event, and I'll tell you why I say for the most part, like afterwards. But I was very young at the time. I was in kindergarten, like, but despite me being like 5 years old, I remember this memory very vividly. I was living with my mom, my grandma, and my mom's siblings at the time. And we were in the process of moving out of our current place. So, like, everything in my mom's and I's room, like, was packed up. For some reason, we had our mattress on the floor of the living room. And, like, the mattress was, like, facing our front door, which had, like, the metal screen portion and the wooden portion. But, like, the wooden portion was, like, open, and the screen door was locked, but you could still see out screen doors. So, like, let me show you the layout. This is the layout, so that's me and my mom on the mattress. This is our front door, and then we have, like, the kitchen and the hallway with the other rooms on the side. So that's us right there. But I remember waking up in the middle of the night, and I stare out the door, and there's something there. And I know it wasn't human. I know it wasn't a person, because when I stared out, like, this entity, this thing, although, like, maybe, like, humanoid, like, in regular, like, the shape of it, like, had horns and wings to it. And I just remembered, like, being terrified. I was so, like, scared, and I didn't know what to do. And so I started calling my mom. And I'm like, Mom, what is that? My mom, like, is there. She's like, and she, like, she acknowledges seeing it. She's like, Sergio, I don't know what that is, Sergio, but, like, in a rush, in a haste, she was like, Sergio, pray. She was like, Sergio, pray. And she, like, covers our faces with her, like, the blanket. And she, like, just pray, keep praying, and don't stop. Like, little me is terrified. And just praying that this thing, like, goes away. And, like, there's us praying. I don't remember for how long. But eventually my mom, like, lift up, like, the covers and look, and it's gone. I don't remember what happens after that, but, like, that specific, like, time, I remember that so much. And, like, I know what people are gonna say is, like, oh, you were so young, so how can you really know you've seen this thing? The thing is, every, like, few years as I grew up until, like, when I was 18, like, my mom passed away, I would always ask her, like, Mom, do you remember this? Like, this actually happened, right? And she would always, like, confirm, yes. Like, yes, this happened. And like, she added on to the story, because I don't remember this part, but she told me, yeah, I remember it reaching through the screen, like, his hand went through the screen, it being, like, a red tint. And I didn't remember that part, but my mom added that on, and I'm just like, it was so creepy, and I was, like, terrified. And I say it's a one-off event just because nothing else really happened. For the most part, we had a lot of porcelain dolls that creeped me out. But, like, the addition to it is I had some friends spend the night, because my mom had a friend with kids my age. So, like, for me to have friends and stuff, she let them spend the night every once in a while. But there was this one night, like, one of the kids had a nightmare. And I think my mom, like, was talking to him about it. But he shares that his, like, nightmare is, like, was, like, that he's seen the devil. And the devil told him to, like, kill his brother. Which is, like, very creepy. A very creepy dream for a kid to have. Yeah. So that's a little addition. But, like, other than those that I know of, nothing else really happened in that house. But, like, yes, it's such a vivid memory for me. And whenever I think back to that one house, that is pretty much one of, like, the only memories I have of that house. Yes, it's very creepy, and I'd love to know everybody else's thoughts on that, because, like, what did I see? And I'm just like, has anybody else ever, like, had, like, an experience like that? Because, like, I've told people this story before, And I, of course, think it's scary, but there's nothing, like nobody else has had an experience like that before. And I just want to, like, I need that validation. I was like, has anybody else seen that before? But yes, that's the story. Wait, I just wanted to show you, like, before I log off. So this is that diagram I showed you, but I actually, like, I had the little demon, like, there as well. I was just trying to cover it with my finger until, like, I revealed the story and I showed you guys. But yes, just wanted to show that real quick. Bye.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely...
So this is not my story. This is actually my grandmother's story. But back in either 79 or 80, she lived out in Colorado with my grandfather and my dad when he was a little boy. And I think they live in a 2-story home, and I believe it was like, you know, a summer night. So they had all their windows and their bedroom doors open. They just let the house circulate. And she said one night when she was sleeping on her stomach, she said that she's usually a stomach sleeper, just like me. She slept on her stomach, had her arm right here, this other arm right here, and her head to the side. And she felt like something was watching her, and it woke her up out of her sleep, like the feeling of someone just staring at her. She said she got a bit of, you know, courage up to just look over her shoulder to see what it was. So in her room, when you came in through her bedroom door, I guess there was like a wall in front, and then you went past the wall into the actual room. And she said when she looked over her shoulder, she saw something at that wall with his hands around it, peeking out, looking at her. She said when it noticed her looking at it as well. So as soon as she turned and looked at it, it like went back and hid. And then a couple seconds later, it would go back and look again. What makes this the creepiest to me, as I asked her to describe it to me, and she said it was as tall as the ceiling. And I don't know if her ceilings were as tall as mine, but like I'm guessing they were not short. So it was probably over 6'5". Just, you know, a guess. I've never been into that home. But all she can think is that my, you know, young father, my dad either at the time was like 9 or 10, is down the hall with his cousin, which is her niece, you know, spending the night, and there's this thing or person or she doesn't know in her home watching her and her husband while she sleeps, having no clue if it even had been, you know, in my father's room at this point, or how it got in their home. So for some reason she decides not to wake my grandfather up. She doesn't really remember if she even tried, but her instinct was to immediately just jump up and run at this thing. But she said as soon as she ran at it, like speed of lightning, it went down the hall into my dad's room and out the window and just disappeared. My grandmother, some context, is a Christian. She's very religious. She does not believe in ghosts. She thinks they're demons, you know, that kind of whole thing. So she doesn't believe in aliens, ghosts, none of it. She only believes in demons, and she thinks that demons pretend to be a ghost or someone you know to, you know, trick you or fool you or whatever. But, you know, she waited 40 years to tell me and my dad this for some reason. She never told anybody this for 40 years, other than my grandfather that next morning. And he, I guess, made her feel like she was insane. But I asked her, I was like, do you think this was a ghost? And she was like, no, I don't think it was. I said, well, Grandma, what do you think this was? Like, what did it look like? And she was like, to be honest, it looked like what you would think an alien would look like. So I immediately just thought, you know, maybe it was one of the Greys. I'm not an alien expert, so you can't ask me. But it just sounds like one of them, because I've, you know, watched some videos on it. But I don't know. Tell me if you've ever encountered like an alien or what you think this thing was, because when she told me, I was like really taken aback, because my grandmother doesn't talk about creepy things. This is not her. So it freaked me and my dad out, respectively.
So nobody likes to tell any ghost stories, spooky stories, whatever you call it, supernatural stories, and share like real stories like that, or things that occurred to them, because nobody wants to feel like everybody thinks you're crazy. But I remember sharing a story one night at work, and everybody from all walks of life started sharing their own stories, and it turns out everybody's got a scary story. So I have two. There's one I don't talk about because it still terrifies me, because I know I would have died. But the first occurrence I don't mind sharing because it doesn't scare me as bad now. But it was a crazy event, but it's a shared experience. So I have a witness for this one. But if you like this story that I'm about to tell you, and you want to hear the other one, comment below and share your own stories if you have any. There was one night, my sister and I was about 18 or 19. She's 4 years older than me. And we both lived at home in Detroit, Michigan, in this older home. It was like 1 in the morning. I was the only one up. Everybody else was upstairs asleep. And I heard my sister calling me really softly, which was already weird because we're a loud family. So it's like, why are you whispering? What is happening? But she was going, Reese, Reese. And I'm like, what? She goes, come here. Well, I'm downstairs, I'm watching Friends, and I didn't feel like getting up. I didn't respond to her, but I thought to myself in my head, like, I'll go in once it goes to commercial. Luckily for her, it went to commercial just then. So I was just like, okay. So I go to run up the stairs, like, just being silly, just kind of jogging up the stairs. Our bathroom was at the top of the stairs, and the light was on. And we usually leave the light on so that it could illuminate the hallway and the stairs. Our light was on, and I get to the top of the landing, and I jumped once I got on the landing, and I was like, okay, I'm here. And I looked down the hallway, which is not a long hallway, so the bathroom should have illuminated it, but the hallway was uber dark, like really dark. And I remember thinking, like, why is it so dark down there? But I'm still walking towards her door, and just as I get to the entryway to her bedroom door, which was across from mine, it was like, and her door was open, but just as I get to the entryway, it was like I felt a breeze, like something moved really fast past me. And it startled me because I remember I kind of like stepped back, and then I like put my back against the wall in the hallway, kind of like, what the heck was that? But I couldn't see. So I remember like reaching around behind me into her room and flipping the switch, hoping to see like, what the heck was that? And just as I did that, of course I don't see anything, but I like turned and like peeked in her room so I can be like, what's going on? As soon as I look at her, she's got the covers up to her chin, and she's like staring at the ceiling, shaking. And she's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. She's like, Reese? And I'm like, yeah. And she was like, she said she woke up and her room was pitch black, and she felt real uncomfortable. And she's like, why is it so dark? She started calling me thinking I was in bed across the hall. And she was like scared to get up because it was just a weird feeling. And she said she called me. I said, what? And she was like, come here. Well, she said about like a minute or two after she called me, she heard me say, here I am. And she's like, where are you? I can't see. Turn the light on. And just as she said that, she heard me down the hall go, okay, I'm here. Now, that might not scare you, but I can promise you, anybody in my community, usually we don't jive with that. Like, nah, dog. We woke my mother up. Ma, get the oil, start praying. I don't know what just happened, but we both kind of had a weird moment right now, and I don't know what's going on. But yeah, that was my little spooky story. But like I said, I have a second one which was actually terrifying, and I know people are not gonna believe me, especially if you don't believe me on this one. But if you want to hear that one, I will work up the courage and tell that story, but you got to tell me down below. All right, another spooky story. This one makes me even more uncomfortable to talk about than the first one. And once again, this is true. You can believe me or not, but it happened, and I really wish it didn't. In 2018, I went to a store, and already the store made me kind of uncomfortable. I went there for a particular reason, but the store already made me uncomfortable because there's all kinds of things that were just around the like perimeter of the store that I was just kind of like, what is all this? But the vibes in the store was just off. But the weird thing was, the minute I got in the car with the item, I felt uncomfortable. Because I remember I kept looking over at my passenger seat for like no reason at all. And I was just like, oh, like I just don't feel right. Like I shouldn't have even gone in there, but I did. Anyway, I get home, and all night I kept looking like I'm, just enjoying my day. And my mom and my grandmother lived with me at this time. And I get home, I'm enjoying my day, but when I was in my room, every time I would be in my room, I'd look over to the this one corner, and I just kept feeling this uncomfortable vibe. And I just kept glancing over at that corner. I'm like, what is going on right now with me? What's happening? At the end of the night, I laid down to go to sleep. And I was just getting into sleep good when all of a sudden it felt like, no joke, like something grabbed me here, but on the inside, like not my actual flesh, and was pulling me, like pulling like my spirit, I guess, out of my body. Cause I felt like that was the image in my head, cause that's what it felt like. I was being pulled up and like towards cause my bed was up against the wall. So it felt like I was being pulled in that direction. And I remember I was taking this long breath, like I was exhaling, and I couldn't stop exhaling. And it was so long. I don't even want to try and guess how long it was, but it felt like it was really long. And I was like long. And I remember at this point, my eyes are wide open, and I always sleep with the lights on anyway, so it's not like I was in the dark. And I'm laying there like, what is happening to me? And I come from a background where we pray, and we pray to God. And so in my mind, I immediately started praying, and I'm like going in praying. And I'm like pleading the blood of Jesus. Like, if you know what I'm talking about is like a prayer warrior, that kind of praying. And I'm like, I remember saying I can't even think of all the words I said just at this moment because I hate telling this story. But anyway, I remember just as I really got into praying like really hard in my mind, all of a sudden the pulling sensation stopped. And then I swear it felt like an anvil or something was on my chest, because it felt like I started being pushed down into the bed. Like I would have thought I was going through the bed. That's how hard I was being pushed. And I remember now I'm no longer exhaling. I can't even inhale. And I remember being like, feeling the bed, like, oh my gosh, am I going through the bed? And I'm like, what? Like, I'm praying, I'm freaking out at the same time. Like, what am I experiencing? And I remember after like maybe 2 minutes of that, everything just stopped. And I got up in the weirdest way. It was like a robot. Like I just kind of, and I walked out of my room, and I went to my mom. I was like, Mom, like, I need you to pray. I don't know what just happened, but I need that to never happen. That pulling was the scariest and weirdest sensation I've ever felt in my life. My mother got to praying. I threw away the item I had bought at that store, and I was just like, what in the world? I don't want to know what that was, but I never, ever, ever need to experience anything like that again. So that's my spooky story. I've had other crazy things happen throughout life, young and older, but that was probably the worst. Believe me or not, But if you've ever had any crazy experience, please like comment below. I just want to know, had anybody else experienced something like that? These are just short little odd occurrences. That's why I titled it this. These are just short little odd occurrences that I want to hear from you. Am I tripping? Have I tripped? Aren't these a little odd, a little spooky? Like, what was that? I don't want to know what it is, but what was that? I just wanted to say thank you for all the feedback and everything from my previous 2 videos, because I really was struggling to decide if I was going to post the second video. Because like I said, nobody likes to feel like, okay, everybody thinks you've gone around the bend. These are my final spooky stories or spooky tidbits, because I feel I've met my quota. I don't need any more experiences of the kind. We can pass that plate along to, we can pass that plate down the table. Though I do have more stories. So when I mentioned in the second video that I have more stories, I meant like of all different variety. Like this time last year, I was homeless, sleeping in my car, me and my niece and my nephew. Just things that my family attributes to miraculous turnarounds. Like we just feel like God intervened in different situations. That was like the timing just seemed like nothing but divine intervention. Other things that I feel like I've spoken into existence over my life, or manifested, whatever language you want to use for that. Random embarrassing things, all kinds of stories like that. So if you like my stories, you want to hear more, maybe just let me know and I will intersperse them throughout my general content, my regular content. 1, any of my 80s babies and elder millennials should remember the My Buddy doll. Now, I was told that this is the doll that Chucky from Child's Play was based off of. I don't know if that's true. Never looked into it. Well, I had his equivalent, which was the Kid Sister doll. Yeah. So I had the Kid Sister doll when I was 6, I believe. I had the Kid Sister doll. This particular day I was playing with the doll, I had taken a red ink pen and I drew all over her face like she was bleeding. She had been through some things. I don't know why I wanted her to look like she had been in a fight, but that's what I did. Played with her, and then at bedtime, I sat her on our dresser. I sat her on the dresser with her back like leaning against the mirror. So she was facing us, basically watching over us while we slept. The next morning, so we went to bed, I sat her on the dresser facing us. The next morning we get up and we're going through the living room and we both stopped and looked down at the coffee table and was like, how did my dog get out here? And I said, how did my dog get out here? My sister's like, why is that doll on the table? And we went back and forth like this for a minute. It was like, dude, where's my car? Where's your car? Dude, where's my car? Like, I'm like, how did my dog get out here? And she's like, why is that doll on the table? We didn't get up in the middle of the night and go for a snack. And I didn't get up and go to the bathroom. And she wouldn't have gotten up without me because she would have made sure I went when she went so she didn't have to get up later. So how did the doll get on the table? We're sitting there going back and forth. Finally, my sister's like, no. She grabs the doll by the foot, takes it out into the backyard, and burns it. Because she was not having it. Now, if you thought maybe the doll already looked grotesque because of the red I had drawn all over her face, I remember staring at her face as she's melting and she was making this like grimace, and I mean, it was creepy enough. I had to turn away. Active imagination. Maybe we were just tripping. But we still to this day puzzle over how any way it could have gotten onto that table. Number 2. So I'm about 13 at this point, and we're living in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. And I was a little emo teen, I was trying to imagine my life getting better and what my teenage life was going to be like. Sitting in my room listening to the radio, I'm pretty sure it's the Quiet Storm at that point. And out of the blue, felt like hands just grabbed me. And I mean, are going in. I couldn't get anything in, couldn't exhale, just squeezing. And I'm talking about vice grip. Maybe you could attribute it to reflux, gas. I don't know, right? But I've had gastric acid reflux to where my chest expanded and I couldn't inhale. And my chest was tight as a drum. Like you could thump it, it probably would have echoed. I've had that before. This felt nothing like that because it doesn't explain the gripping sensation. I don't know how long it lasted. All I know is it just stopped because at this point, I didn't even think to pray. I was just like, what? I'm sitting there in this room freaking out a little bit, then it just stopped. I remember I got up, went into the room where my mother and my stepdad were, and just sat in there with him. I didn't tell them what happened because you sound cray. I don't want to tell somebody this just happened. I don't even want to tell you this. I don't know why I'm doing this. That's it. That's it to that story. I just started getting into the show Supernatural. And a friend from work loaned me his DVD so I could watch the series. And I'm at home by myself watching it when the TV froze. And it froze like this. If I have the picture, I'll insert it here. But it froze like this. And at first I'm, okay, that's uncomfortable, a little weird. Got up, I fast forwarded or tried, nothing. Rewind, nothing. Okay, turn the TV off, turn it back on, same screen. Took the DVD out, wiped it with alcohol, put it back in, same screen. So I just decided maybe that was enough Supernatural for the day. Once again, maybe that's not creepy to you, but it was a little creepy to me. This isn't a story. This is just what? I'm in my room. I think I was scrolling on social media, sitting on my bed, and I just looked up. I look up and saw this. You might say that's a trick of the light. But the light shifted, clouds went by, and I'm still staring at that. So I took those pictures. Is anybody else seeing this? Can you see this? Is this just a trick of the light? What is that? Well, what am I looking at? Am I just tripping? Because, the clouds are shifting. The sun isn't in the same position, or we're not. Well, but that's still... Now, it didn't feel sinister. I didn't feel uncomfortable, but what? So you tell me, what do you think? Am I tripping? Am I just being weird? Or was that a little...
The most terrifying legend that I ever heard was that of the Stick Indian. Now, the Stick Indian comes from the Northwest Native American tribes. And to them, they do not like to talk about this thing. But I heard one story that comes out of Washington State. There was this girl named Serena. Now, Serena and her 6 friends decided for her 18th birthday that they were going to go on this camping trip. So they headed out towards Mount Rainier to this spot that they had camped several times before. They get there, they set up camp, and they start drinking. Well, it starts to get late, and they build this really big campfire. As they're sitting around the campfire, they begin to tell ghost stories. And one by one, each person goes and tells a story. Well, it gets to Serena. And Serena says, this is a story that my great-grandmother told me. It's an old Native American legend. Apparently, there were these things called the Stick Indians. Now, the Stick Indians were this normal tribe that lived peacefully amongst the other tribes. Until one year, they had this very bad winter. And there were no rabbits, no deers, nothing to hunt. So they began to starve. And they lost all this weight. Their skin, was pulling up against their bones. Their eyes sank into their face. They started to lose their hair. And all that would remain were these little strands of stringy, long black hair. Their nails and teeth began to break and crack. And their voice started to go hoarse and sounded very shrilly, almost like screams. Eventually, they got to the point where they became so hungry that it drove them insane. And this one particular day, they hear whistling coming from a nearby tribe. And in desperation, because of how hungry they were, they decided to go over to this tribe, and they end up eating the whole entire village. After they had done this, they got this taste for flesh, and it drove them even more mad. And it said still to this day, they have this taste for flesh. And then all of a sudden, Serena goes silent. And she hears whistling. But she looks over and notices it's this one boy named Caleb who went with her. And she goes, Caleb, why would you whistle like that? You're not supposed to whistle in the woods. This is how you draw these things in. You're not supposed to do that. And Caleb goes, oh, I don't believe any of that. That's a bunch of hocus pocus jazz, And he starts taunting her. So after this, they decide they're going to go and play hide and go seek in the woods. So they go off in different directions, and Serena goes her own way into the woods. And she finds this good hiding spot behind a bush next to this tree. And she's sitting there, waiting. She can hear them counting. And then, ready or not, here I come. And all of a sudden, she starts to hear what sounds like footsteps walking towards her. And then it gets very, very quiet. And she hears, and then a clapping sound. And right behind her was Caleb. And he goes, you thought I was a stick person, didn't you? And she goes, that was stupid. Why would you do that? You're not supposed to whistle in the woods. Stop doing that. And she said, right as she was talking to Caleb, she looks up, and there is this tall man that's skinny, with his skin, close to his bones. His eyes are sunken in. His nails and teeth are broken. He's covered in mud and dirt. And he's hunched over. And she said he just grabbed Caleb and started dragging him through the woods. So Serena is scared. She's terrified, but she knows she has to go after Caleb and help him. She runs in his direction where this thing is dragging him through the woods. Finally, this creature stops, and he just starts eating Caleb. And when he finishes eating on Caleb, he stops, and all of a sudden he turns his head and he looks directly at Serena. He's got blood on his face. He's got what looks like pieces of flesh in his teeth. And he starts crawling towards Serena. And he gets within a couple inches of her, and he starts sniffing up her leg and up the side of her body. But then all of a sudden, he turns and just runs off into the woods. And as he's running away, all you hear is...
I grew up in a haunted house, and these are my stories. So I had a best friend named Louis back in high school, and we were pretty much inseparable back in the day. I'd always go over to his house, he'd come over to my house. We had fridge raiding rules or permissions. I could raid his fridge, he could raid my fridge, and he was a really, really good buddy. And he always came to my house after school. Like, he would ride his bike up to my house, and then we would do shenanigans for the rest of the night, and he would ride his bike back home. So I was maybe a junior, and my mom and I are coming home, and we see Louis just like chilling at the front of the driveway, like outside of the yard, just hanging out there, which is not Louis's thing to do. So we pull up, and he just stayed at the driveway. He just would not come back into the yard. So I walk up to him like, "Hey man, what's going on?" Now, keep in mind, Louis always got to the house first, just because we have to pick up my nephew and other stuff before we got to my house. So he'd always ride there first, wait for me, and then I'd get my bike, and we'd go do shenanigans for the rest of the afternoon. So he's there, and he's just got like this like look on his face, and he's almost pale. So I'm like, "Louis, what's going on?" And he's like, "Dude, I got here early, like I usually do. And I was riding my bike, just in circles in your driveway, like I normally do. And then I looked up into your bedroom window on the second floor." Now remember, guys, this is the same room my sister saw the old woman. So he goes, "I looked up onto the second floor, and I see like this old lady just staring at me from the second floor, just staring down at me while I'm on my bike." So he says to me, she was like pressed up against the window, like both hands, and her forehead was like on the window. And she's looking down at me. And I'm staring at her because I don't recognize it. I don't recognize who she is. And then the next thing I know, while I'm looking at her, she kind of like backs away from the window. But as she backs away, she almost like disappears, dematerializes, or whatever you want to call it. At this time, like most of my friends in high school, Louis didn't know the place was haunted. He knew nothing about anything that happened at the house. I don't think I ever told anyone back in high school because, people always think you're crazy. So I'm looking at him like, are you serious? And he goes, "Yeah." Like, she was looking down at me, pressed against the window, and all of a sudden she just pushed off and dematerialized back into the house. So I asked him like, "Hey, do you wanna go inside?" He goes, "Nah, I'm good. I just wanted to wait until there was someone else here before I rode home because I'm afraid to ride home. Can you ride home with me?" So I rode home with Louis, and he barely said a word the entire time back home. And then I rode back, and that was that. Louis, we still hung out a lot, but Louis never came over to the house again. I don't think he came over to the house until I was in college, and I came home to visit. I was in community college, and he came home to visit from the Army. And yeah, that day he never came back again. The entire time we were back in high school, never came back. That's my story for today, friends. Sorry I'm posting a little late. I'm in the office again because reasons. But I hope you enjoyed the story. I will try to post some stuff this weekend. I usually like to spend time with my family, so if I don't post anything this weekend, I do apologize. But, weekend is family time. Anyway, guys, that's it for me. As always, be easy, stay frosty, and may the force be with you. Peace.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
I've been trying to say this story now since, I want to say, since springtime. I've been trying to make this video, and my phone craps out, my iPad craps out. Something happens where TikTok just absolutely malfunctions whenever I record this story. And what's so funny is I've been recording making other posts, and it did not fail. It posted perfectly fine. So whatever, I'm just gonna try again. So I want to say this happened around March 2011. I was young at the time. Now I'm a lot older, but I was young at the time. And it was 2011, March. I will never forget it. It was still really cold. I live in New York, so it's still cold. And I remember it was either the second week or the first week of March. But anyways, I'm at this point in my life, I actually stopped smoking weed like way before, so I know I don't have any mental problems. I don't have any drug problems. I didn't drink, I wasn't really drinking at this time. So when this happened to me, it was so weird because I'm an atheist at this point in my life. So I don't believe in anything spiritual. I don't believe in any religion. If anything, I used to make fun of people who were like, oh my God, I saw a ghost. And, I used to actually make fun of people because I just felt like it was people who wanted attention. Like, I used to be very judgmental about it. So I want to say this is I went to sleep like around 10, 11 p.m. I remember that the next day I had to be at work at 5 in the morning. I was working at a bagel store at the time, so I had to open. I was actually covering for somebody else because they got hurt or they were sick. I can't really remember that part clearly, but anyways, I'm sleeping, and where I am living at the time, there was like a little mice problem at the time. So I just remember that there was like a little bit of a mice problem. So I remember hearing a little noise at 1 in the morning, and I was like, oh, what the hell is that? I think it's the little homies, right? Like the little mice are whatever, fucking up the walls, inside the walls, like whatever, right? So I remember that the landlord were like, oh, we're trying to take care of the problem, we're gonna handle it, we're handling it. And they eventually did handle it. But anyways, I know that I had gone to the store, and my fat ass, because at this time I was overweight, so my fat ass had bought like hair accessories from like the beauty supply store, and I had gotten a Snickers bar, and that Snickers bar was in the bag, and I'm like, oh my God, the mice are gonna eat my Snickers bar. Like, this is the little noise that I'm hearing, right? So I turn on the light, I throw my shoe at the bag, and no mice, no nothing, right? I hear the little noise again, like something is touching the plastic bag. Now, I know that we don't really use a lot of plastic bag anymore, but those really like nylon type of plastic bags, whenever like the wind is hitting against it, it makes like that weird rustling sound. So I'm hearing that little sound again. Something is touching the bag, and I'm like, what the fuck? What is that noise? So I get up again, nothing, right? I was like, what the hell? I go back, turn off the lights again, go back to sleep. This time, I hear the noise again, so I sit up in my room. Now, my room is like pitch black, but I did have like this really obnoxiously large digital clock, and that light is very bright. And I remember there is a little green light, and it's not like a green light, I meant to say a gray light. It's like a little gray ball, and it's starting at the bottom corner of the room, the bottom left corner of the room where the bag is from the beauty supply store, and it starts traveling diagonally to the upper right corner of my room. And I'm like, what the fuck? It's like a fuzzy gray ball of light. That's really what I can describe it like. And it was just like floating, very weak like, and whatever, and it disappeared into that corner of the room. So I was like, that was weird. The next second, what I see I have never told this story since 2011. I told my coworkers at that time, and my two coworkers, like one is super Christian and the other one is super Catholic, so they were like freaking out when I told them this story. They believed me, but I honestly thought I was crazy, because what happened next to me, I can't believe that it actually happened to me, but I'm still suffering from the physical injuries. So right after I see the gray, I'm sorry, I'm laughing because of how crazy it was. The gray ball of light disappears into the upper right corner of the room. I see what looks like a massive hand, like a big fucking man hand, crawling up my satin sheets. I had white satin sheets just crawling up, and I'm like, what the hell is happening? I remember I'm just cramming my body into the wall because I'm like, oh my god, this thing's gonna get me. And it did. It grabbed my leg, it dragged me all the way down, like down my bed, all the way to the, you know, to the edge of the bed. It flung me up into the ceiling, and then it slammed me down into the ground. My back was out. I just remember that I could not move. After that, I couldn't move. But after like a few minutes, I could feel my body moving, and I get up and I'm running out the room. I run to the living room, and because I can't believe what has just happened. I'm just like, what the fuck, what the fuck, what the fuck, I must have said what the fuck like 10 million times. I don't even know how many times. I'm by myself also in this apartment, so I'm freaking out. There's the TV, where the TV is standing on. Behind the TV, I could feel like there's something very big and tall staring at me. I still cannot see what it is. I still cannot see if it's what it was. Like, I just see something very big, tall, and dark. And I can feel the absolute hatred that it has towards me. And I remember I'm just freaking out. I don't know what to do. I can honestly say that I was kind of paralyzed by fear. I'm sitting on the sofa, and I literally just start, I lay down on the sofa, but I like turn into the sofa. My face is towards it, like into the sofa. And I'm just like, what the fuck, what the fuck, what the fuck? And the next thing you know, I remember that everything got really quiet. That was the weirdest part. I could no longer hear my heart beating because my heart was pounding. I mean, I could feel my body buzzing, but like I couldn't hear nothing. I heard nothing, no noise, no nothing. There's just absolute silence. It's the weirdest thing. I mean, I'm talking about no noise whatsoever. No small noise, no tiny noise, no nothing. And I'm looking around because I'm like, this feels weird. Like, I felt like I almost went deaf. What I'm assuming feels like to go deaf. And I start getting beat up. I mean, I'm talking about, I'm getting punched in the back of my head. I'm getting punched in my back. My butt is getting punched. The back of my thighs are getting punched. My calves are getting punched. Even my heel, like the heel of my foot, is getting punched up. I've been jumped before because I used to hang around with a really ratchet ass crowd when I was really young. So, I mean, I've jumped people and people have jumped me. So I'm like, what? I'm getting jumped right now, and there's nothing around me. Like, I'm getting jumped and there's nothing around me. I see nothing, but I feel like I just got like punched by 20 hands, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? I run out the house, right? I run out the apartment. I run downstairs. And the house next to me, there's tenants in that house too. And this one guy, he happened to come back from like the bar. He's smoking a cigarette, and he sees that I'm freaking out, and he's like, what the hell is happening?
I'm one of those weird people that remembers when I was really, really young, like learning how to walk young. Me and my brother shared a room. This was in Tampa, Florida. And we had 2 twin beds. He had a Star Wars bed. I had strawberry shortcake or rainbow bright. I can't remember. They were both popular back then. So I'm laying in my bed. It's bedtime, I believe. My brother starts to whimper. And I mother him to my brother because he's my baby brother. And I'm like, it's okay, buddy. I didn't look over there. I didn't go over there. So he starts to cry. And I get up out of bed. And as I'm crossing the room, I see my brother go like this. And cover his face and point to the closet. The closet was directly in front of him. And I froze completely when I looked over at the closet. In the closet was a shadow figure. It was a man, but he was completely black. He was at least 7 foot tall, almost hit the ceiling. Our closet was real shallow front to back, so he was in there. And the scary part was he was like doing this, like he was screaming as loud as he could, but no sound was coming out. And his eyes, oh my God, his eyes were, you know when you look at the road and it's really hot, like the heat wave coming off the road? It was kind of like that. And it was in his mouth too. But other than that, I saw no facial features other than where his eyes would be and where his mouth would be. And he was like screaming at us. And I was so terrified that I pissed myself immediately, and I'm standing there and I'm frozen completely solid, and I hear my brother screaming still, and I look down, and that is what just traumatized me. There was another one down at his knee. There was the tall one, and then there was another one down at his knee, and he was like on all fours, crouched down like he was about to sprint in a race straight for me. And I remember screaming bloody murder, but I still was frozen and I was soaking wet. And like, I remember everything. My mom and my dad came in. They were Harley riders, bikers. And they must have just came in from outside because their leather on their jackets was freezing. And my dad picked me up and I could smell the leather. And I still remember the smell and the coldness. And I was hiding my face in my dad's chest. And my dad was kind of rocking me. My mom had my brother holding him, comforting him. And I'm shaking. My dad kept turning me where my face was towards like the closet. And I was just burying my face and completely terrified. But, and I remember the being still being there, but I don't remember anything that really happened after that. I do, however, remember, and I have many stories. I moved to Georgia. My parents divorced shortly after that. I moved to Georgia, and it was either that thing or another thing followed me because it traumatized my childhood up until I was probably 7 years old. Well, and again, later in life, but it's been a long time. If you want to hear some stories, let me know because I got some really freaking good ones.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
Okay, finish getting ready with me while I tell this one. I had said a while back that I would come back and tell you this one, and I just keep forgetting to do it. So it's a rainy fall Sunday, so what a better day than today to do this. So my scariest ghost story is this one. I grew up in a house that is... was, but I know people that live there now and claim it still is haunted. When I was a kid, probably about, I remember it, and my brother was still around, so I was about 4 or 5 at this point. We had been at our grandparents' house, and this is gonna get messy. And, you know, when you're a kid, you know, it was at night, and I just had this big burst of energy. Okay, like I was just running, you know, and my parents, of course, were like, you know, let her burn it off, screw it, you know, she's gonna go to sleep great tonight, you know. So I was running, and then it was time to go home. Still was like just wound for sound. I don't know why, you know, kids just get those bursts of energy. And the way our old house was set up, you'd walk in, and it was, one second, I should have done this off camera. So you walk in, and it was the kitchen, go this way, hallway, and then like the bedrooms were here, the living room, so it was like a square. So you could run around, and it was a square. And I was still kind of running around, burning off energy. My parents were like, whatever, let her, do her thing. So I was running a couple laps. And I remember at one point, so when you come to the end of the hallway, my brother's room was here and mine was here. And then you would like walk through my room to get to my parents' room. I have lipstick everywhere. But anyway, I remember when I was running at one point, in the corner of my eye, I saw something standing in my doorway, and I was just like, what the hell is that? As a kid, you don't really pay attention. So I remember coming back, and I stop about halfway down the hallway, and I have just a normal sized door. So just imagine a regular sized door, so probably about 6 feet, if, whatever. And I stopped, frozen. There was a man standing in my doorway. To this day, I can still perfectly see what he looked like. I can perfectly remember how scared I was. I was frozen with fear. This man, he filled the whole doorway. And he was bluish green, which at the time I was a kid, I didn't realize that means death. But, and he had like these striped pants on and like a corduroy kind of jacket and a top, like a whitish top underneath. Like, it was really weird because I remember me being a kid, he had these really big shoes, and it wasn't clown shoes, but like because he was striped pants and stuff, I kind of equated it to like a circus clown. That wasn't what he looked like, but as a kid, your mind just goes there, And he was just smiling, like he had these dead kind of like looking eyes, and he was just grinning, this like grayish white kind of slimy looking grin. I can still perfectly see him in my mind to this day. And he wasn't moving. I wasn't moving. He was just standing there in my doorway, staring at me, smiling, not blinking, not anything. And I finally came to, and I freaked out. And I ran into the living room where my parents were, and I jumped into my mom's arms. Like, I was like breaking down, freaking out, like crying. Oh my God, Mom, there's a man in my door. Yada, 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 like freaking out, like I would not go. And she's like, Courtney, there's nobody here. And I was like, no, like I just wouldn't calm down at all. I was freaking the hell out. And so my mom was like, fine, I'm going to go prove to you. Let's go. And I was like, no, don't go, Well, she gets up and she sits me down in the chair and she walks out there. And she just kind of looks at me when she comes back like, Courtney, really? And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, it's your teddy bear. My teddy bear. She claims to this day, she claims she did not see a man. She claims that she walked back there and this teddy bear, which I think she still has it at her house. I ain't bringing it to my house. But she still has it. She claims that when she walked back there, it was sitting in my doorway. Just sitting there, like kind of off the side, like I had dropped it. And she's like, you're freaking out over a teddy bear. Like, pick your toys up, come on, kind of attitude. And I was like, no. Like, I was pleading with her, like, you got to believe me. I don't act like this. I never did, So, yeah, that happened. So to get me to calm down, because I just was not calming down. For some reason, she went and she took a trash bag, and she wrapped this bear up in a bag, and she hid it. She told me she hid it. She put it in the top of her closet, because I eventually found it. But she hid it from me, so I would calm the fuck down and eventually go to bed. Because she thought I was just playing games. She's like, you're seeing things. My mom's also one of those people that it's not that she doesn't not believe, but it kind of scares her, so she just doesn't want to think about it. But in that moment, she was like, well, I didn't see it. It's kind of weird you're acting like that, but whatever, But I swear to you, to this day, I can perfectly see this man, and I don't know. I've never seen him again. But it literally, when I say he filled my whole door frame, like he was huge, he was tall. I was a kid, and it terrified the living daylights out of me. And to this day, I've not forgotten what he looks like or any of that. And I think my mom was kind of hoping I would, because even now, if I bring it up, she's just like, no. And if anyone asks, yes, we do still have the bear. I'm pretty sure my mom has it in her basement. I'm not bringing it to my house. It was actually just a simple white bear with a golden bow and a golden bell on it that I think I had got when I was like born or something like that. I don't remember. Like it was a collective kind of keepsake that I had, gotten out to play with. So like there was nothing wrong with the bear. Like it was a gift from family, like nothing. And I grew up in a very Catholic family, so it's like there's nothing wrong with the bear. It was totally the house. The house was haunted. I've got some other stories about that I could share, but that's my creepiest one, was the big green man. It was all I kept calling him. And of course, as a kid, I didn't realize green meant unalive. But yeah, so that was probably like the scariest, most realistic thing that has ever happened to me, at least in that house. To this day, my mom, like, if I'll talk about it, I think she hoped I forgot it, like I said, but I did not. So, Mom, if you see this, I know you're probably tired of hearing me bring it up because you don't want to think about it, but you're not in that house anymore, so...
Okay, here's part 2 of the drafts that I'm recording about the super haunted house that I grew up in. Another thing that happened, I'll include 2 because they're kind of small. So my grandpa, my pappy, used to fall asleep in the living room a lot, like with his food in front of the TV tray. He would like fall asleep in front of the TV. And where was a back patio where my parents and my Grammy would always go smoke. And so as a kid, we used to all just kind of like go hang out on the back patio. And the patio had these kind of like, so the patio had a sliding glass door that you could access getting into the house, and they had sheer curtains in front of it. So you can see shadows of whoever's like up and moving, right? So I think my mom is facing the sliding glass door, and she sees my pappy get up, but like in a really, really weird, gross way. So he kind of stands up like this and like goes towards the kitchen. And so she's like, oh, like he's going to come out here and he's going to go smoke. So she like opens up the kitchen door, and he is not there. He is sound asleep on the sofa, like sound asleep. But she saw like this like rickety thing like get up and walk over towards the door. Another thing is we had like this clock, like a mini grandfather clock that like goes up on the wall. It was my pappy's. And one night it flew off the wall. So that was awesome. I'm just going to include all the little ones. Another thing is, so the hallway was just nasty. It was so nasty. Like there was no light in the hallway. I don't know how to describe it. It was just like a nasty fucking like evil portal thing. And so a lot of stuff would happen in the hallway. Like when I was little and I thought I was a Christian or whatever, my sister and I used to run back to back to the bathroom holding out our Bibles because we were so fucking scared. We used to cover all the mirrors in that house. There was a little girl who would like run up the hallway and like knock on doors and be like, play with me. Nasty. Also, my mom probably doesn't want me to tell this story because it makes her really sad. When she brought me home after I was born to my Grammy and Pappy's house, I had a crib in like the front room, I think. And she heard me crying. And sorry, my cat is being so annoying right now. I had a crib in that room, and so one night she like opened the door to check on me because I was crying or something like that. And she said she saw a little boy holding onto my crib, just like this. Like just kind of looking at her and like holding onto the crib. And she hates me telling this story because she didn't rush in. She actually closed the door and like stood on the other side of the door and just cried because she was so scared. I'm fine-ish. So look how I turned out. There's probably a lot more that happened at my house that I just kind of like blocked out. So if I remember, I'll upload them. But I have so many other stories that I need to tell you guys. So I'm going to get to recording those right now.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Okay. So I have been wanting to share this story for the fucking longest. I've told a few people about it, but never like told a whole group of people because to this day, I do not understand what the fuck I saw and I don't understand what the fuck I experienced. So my spiritual people, anybody like that, please tell me what it was because I don't know. So a little context for this story. I have 3 sisters. Growing up, I shared a room with my 2 older sisters, and the way our room was set up, it was like a long, big room. We had the biggest room in the house because obviously there was 3 of us in a room. So it was my oldest sister was on the very far right of the room. I was in the middle, and then my second oldest sister was on the other side of the room, the far left. So that's the context. Basically, I think I was about between the ages of maybe 5 and 7. It happened a long time ago, but to this day, I still vividly remember what happened. Basically, it was the middle of the night, and all I remember was kind of like hearing my name being called, and it kind of woke me up. And I remember looking up, because again, my bed was in the middle of the room. I looked up to the door, and it was cracked open. and I could see a shadow there. There was somebody standing there, obviously. And I look at the shadow, and all I hear them in the voice that sounded exactly like my second older sister. Like, I kid you not, it was her fucking voice. They're calling out my name. They're like, Lulu. They're like, Lulu, come here. Come here, Lulu. Like, Mom and Dad brought us candy. Like, come out here. Come on. Come here, Lulu. Kid you not, sounded exactly like my older sister. And so again, my second older sister slept to my left side. So I turned to my left, and my sister is in her bed asleep. Turn to my right. My sister is in her room asleep. It couldn't have been my mom because it didn't sound like her voice, and it couldn't have been my youngest sister because she was a fucking baby at the time. And to this day, I do not know what it was that was calling me, but I just was so fucking scared that I just covered myself up with my blanket and I went to sleep. And for the longest, I never told that story to my siblings or to my mom until like just recently. But again, no idea what it was, who it was, or why they wanted me to follow them. So if anybody knows, please let me know.